Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Natty Scene. I think at least this is what we still call the podcast. It's what it comes up on our iTunes, but I've done various formats of this podcast. Obviously, I've got the episode up yesterday with myself, and I did say in that episode that I'd be having a chat with Liam today, so I'm very excited to have Liam on the podcast. Liam is a natural bodybuilder from all the way from across the pond in Australia. So Liam, I've been, like I said yesterday in the solo podcast, I've been following Liam for quite some time. I believe probably at least 2 or 3 years. I initially followed Liam through following Zach, and then obviously just took on board the fact that Liam had equally as good of a physique and a work ethic as Zach as well, in terms of just what he was doing in the gym. Because I like personally myself, the reason why I follow people and why obviously I've reached out to Liam is not just like accolades within bodybuilding or just how they look from a physique standpoint. It's what they do in the gym that matters to me as well, in terms of whether I want to follow them or not. And seeing what Liam does in the gym, how he trains, and just the general approach to things just makes him someone that I think people should be following. So that's why I've got Liam on the podcast. Liam, to give a brief idea as to where Liam's at right now, he's very deep in his competitive season. As you can see, strong diet phase.
You see my jawline. You see my jawline, pretty much a giveaway.
Mate, the cheeks are fucking sunk. You can tell from the front, let alone the side.
Yep.
But yeah, Liam's deep in his contest season. We're going to get a little bit more info on Liam and how his season has gone a little bit later. But for now, Liam, first up, thanks very much for coming on and giving us a bit of your time.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I'd like to thank you for pretty much giving me a good lead in already.
Mm-hmm. No worries, man. So for people that never heard of you, don't follow you on Instagram, haven't seen anything that you do online, give the listeners a little bit of a sort of insight as to what you do, where you come from, and sort of what things look like for you right now.
Thanks, mate. So basically, where I'm at now, as I'd like to say, I'm a natural bodybuilder by heart, and I'm also a strength conditioning coach, which has pretty much built me into the realm, or both hand in hand, into putting me where I am at current. So I work as a strength conditioning coach out of a gym in Hold Your Own, which is sort of along the eastern coastline, Gold Coast, for anyone who's aware of sort of the location in Australia. And I've been working underneath there for a few years now, and I do a lot of coaching, sort of more 50-50 online basis as well as face-to-face, and I enjoy the prospects of both. That's sort of what I do on the working end of things as a coach. And then as myself, I'm a natural bodybuilder, and I've been probably bodybuilding I guess I've been in the gym since I was a kid, like most guys, but doing things properly, probably around the 3 to 4 year mark. And so this is currently my third season in competing. So I guess if you take into account my off season, it's probably about 4 years of actual competing period, including my comp prep and then also my off season duration as well.
Sure. Nice. And what initially got you into the sport, Liam? What got you into the fitness industry? Like when did you get started with all of these things that you do now?
So I guess I sort of followed a bit of a pathway that a lot of young male bodybuilders would have, and it was sort of just that competition, I guess, going through puberty, getting that testosterone, getting into the gym with your mates, and just that competitive spirit. I always played rugby, was involved in a few sort of martial arts type sports, and that sort of built me into the gym. I realised that there was sort of a bit of a carryover effect in doing the strength-orientated movements, that there was a direct carryover to skill acquisition and performance. So literally at school, I started there, and from there on in, I guess, grew a bit of a love for the sport. That I was there for different reasons than some of my mates. They were sort of there to just train chest and get big arms, whereas I started to really enjoy the challenges of training and the different aspects that it provided. Yeah. So I built from there and then started training more. I was offered by the local supplement store guy, Josh Watkin, if he ever watches this, but yeah, he was the guy who first suggested I do a bodybuilding show, and it was very, I guess, good learning experience is the best way to put it. It was only a 7-week prep, and I guess you could say that I learned a lot from that prep. And then as I basically grew, so I finished school, I'm at the end of an exercise physiology degree, which I look to carry on maybe to potentially do a master's. So I've got that sort of knowledge background behind me. And yeah, the physiology aspects of how that's carried over into training. So as well as my career was building, it was sort of compensating what I was doing in the gym. So, I'm doing sort of towards the end of my degree now, so a lot of practical application and the physiological aspects of that, how that ties into training. It was really interesting because I could literally put it into my own experience and my own coaching. Built from there, and was lucky enough to go through my sort of first proper comp prep, so to speak, where I was coached under Nathan Waltz, my current mentor, and so went through there. Was quite successful as a teenage bodybuilder, and then was lucky enough to be offered a job. So I now work for Hold Your Own and have so for a few years now, and I've just built both my coaching and myself physically and mentally as a bodybuilder to put me where I am now. So far it's been the best season so far for me.
Yeah, sure. So are you a junior now, Liam?
Correct. Yes. So I get over here. They've sort of thrown things around a bit, but for us it's 21 years and under as of the 1st of January for the competitive season. So for me, because I'm in this year, I turned 22 in August, but I'm still classified as a junior. However, some federations have pushed that to 23. So for the feds that I've been doing is the INBA/PNBA and the ICN, and potentially a third. From where they stand, it's 21 years and under as of January 1st.
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, for us over in the UK, it's kind of similar. We have some federations that are like under 21. We have some federations that go up to 23. And then obviously with the INBA affiliates, I think actually with the WNBF, they kind of accept anything under 24. So yeah, you have a wide disparity in this way you can enter. But do you think that after this after the junior season you'll take some time out and then go into men's open? Is that the plan after sort of being successful as a junior? Because I know that you've had a fairly successful year as a junior so far.
Mate, absolutely. I don't plan on bodybuilding again for at least another 2 years. Nice. And there's a few reasons behind that. Is that, minimum 2 to 3 years. I guess the first one to touch on is that I've been literally sculpted by my mentor, Nathan Wallace. And for anyone who knows him, he's very powerlifting orientated. And I love this style. That's how I train. I've really, really enjoyed that. And actually leading into this prep, I wanted to do a powerlifting meet. And I was actually programming everything towards that for a good 15 weeks. Nice. And I was potentially not even going to bodybuild. I was like, I want to powerlift. I just loved training. Sure. And obviously that they go so hand in hand. It was smart because theoretically I was like, well, if I bodybuild, the best thing I can do prior to starting my prep is just train my ass off. So I was like, all right, I'll go with the headset of that. So that's the biggest goal is I want to do some powerlifting meets. And I guess for me, I think, coming out of comp prep, it's a really cool change in mindset because, once you get to the griddly end of prep and stay there for a while, mentally you're kind of looking for something a bit different to focus on. So that's the main reason. And yes, secondly, like you say, I won't be a junior anymore. So I'll be stepping up against opens and I don't want to come on with, a physique that's only a kilo heavier. I'd like to really push my standard and really bring something new to stage. So that's going to take as a natural bodybuilder a few years and obviously of hard training. And not to mention I can find some more balance in my lifestyle at the same time.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That makes total sense. And that's something that, for people that follow me, they understand as to why I'm taking 2 years out. It's a simple fact of needing to make improvements for the next step up. A lot of people underestimate how much improvements you do have to make from stepping up from a junior level to a men's open level. Especially with how good the men's open is getting now. Even over here in the UK, we've just had some of our British finals, and I went and watched because I had clients in it, etc. But the standard is just ridiculous. Like some of the guys, in my opinion, and I've seen like a world final, I've seen WNBF Worlds, I've seen some guys in the lightweight lineup, and they wouldn't even place in an amateur British, and they're a WNBF pro. So it's not to say that it's easy to get your card there, but I would say that there's some easier routes to get a pro card in the States than there perhaps is in both Australia and in.
That's 100% the same here. I've noticed that a lot, and I guess that for me is why I've still continued as an amateur at this stage because. I don't. I'm going to the Olympia in 3 weeks' time. So for me, that's sort of personally, that's where I feel like I'll shape up and decide as to whether I feel I qualify to be a pro. And that's just my personal opinion. There's some federations out there without naming names that it's almost like you just get it on when you get your number. It's like when you get your number for your trunks and so they hand you a pro card at the same time. It's just, awful. It's I guess it's a bit upsetting because they're from what I see as a pro, and from the names when someone says pro bodybuilder, I have names pop into my mind, and that's standard compared to what's currently coming to the forefront. There's a gap. There is a big gap, and I don't think there should be. It should be amateur and pro, and it should be pretty distinguishable. You shouldn't be umming and ahhing if that person's a pro or not.
Yeah, so, I think when someone gets their pro card, they should be at a point where they've earned it so that they can literally transition into pros and do very, very well, as opposed to being in a spot where they've got a pro card and they're going to come last in every pro show they do. Like, that's just an awful waste of time, and you should probably be an amateur. I'd rather be an amateur for longer than compete and do awful as a pro. At least that's my
Absolutely, 100%.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I know when my coach Nate got his pro card, he had to go all the way to the Olympia and win as an amateur before he was even considered to be offered a pro card. And in my mindset, I'm like, that's what it should be. Yeah.
Sweet. So moving on to sort of a bit of your sort of approach to things, how your program, I know that you mentioned very, very briefly with some of your powerlifting programming, and I can expect that you still enjoy a lot of those big basic movements when you're prepping and obviously in the off season as well. But for the listeners, just give us a general sort of idea as to how you approach training right now. Perhaps just run us through sort of how your week looks and how you generally like to program things for yourself, or obviously with Nathan's help throughout contest prep, if there's any sort of special considerations you take into account for either frequency, volume, intensity, exercise selection. Just give us a general wrap up on your current thoughts with training right now when you are prepping.
Well, I guess the past few weeks is pretty boring. I won't go into too much detail because I'm back to back. So I don't do much. It's actually... it's boring as. Only reason being is because I've just got only 6 days between show. I'm not going to go balls out and then be holding shoes. For the listeners, they might find it interesting. Like, how do you approach peak week training? So So when's are you competing this weekend, and when's the show? Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I compete in 2 days' time. I fly to Melbourne.
Okay, cool. So how have you planned out this week to approach that?
So essentially, I guess the dynamic or the focus of a peak week changes, so we're not necessarily looking at progressive overload, looking at increasing your lifts, looking at, training till failure, performing X amount of a given part of a meso block or whatever it may be. It's more so you physically need to look better. So for me, it's about glycogen shuttling. So we're trying to sustain an adequate volume to ensure that most variables, such as keeping in a deficit and everything else, remain the same. But obviously, you're tailoring your nutrition quite dynamically. So for me, I run, at the moment, it's more of a hybrid to backload. We want to touch on that later. And around those training days, I need to ensure that sort of the movements I'm performing are hopefully providing the most optimal opportunity for my muscles to take in and absorb that glycogen so that they look nice. So that means that it's literally kind of like focus on the squeeze, focus on the pump, like time under tension stuff, RP of nothing over sort of 6. So training pretty light and moderate. And it also allows for some really good recovery as well. So when I train legs, how I normally train legs, I'm literally trying to destroy myself. I train as hard as I possibly can, and the recovery aspect of that can be up to 72 hours.
Yep.
When you're in a massive calorie deficit, your body's going to struggle to recover that for that. So I guess you have to look at as well what your recoverable capacity is when you're in such a big calorie deficit, and what's actually going to be sustainable to make you look your best. And that is the focus of the peak week, is just tailoring those last sort of minor tweaks so that you look your best on stage. And I think an important thing to touch on as well is listening to a podcast. I think it was by Jeff Nippard. Basically, there's more of a significant impact on a peak week the more conditioned someone is. So if someone's not necessarily conditioned and ready for stage, all those variables that I've kind of touched on may not actually have as big of an effect, whereas sometimes people look heavily or less upon a peak week. I think it is really individual depending on the athlete themselves and how lean they are.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Have you ever, out of interest, have you ever run a peak week where you simply don't really change training and you just take the last few days backing off? Or have you always done like RPE6 training and backed off like considerably?
It's funny. I think the further I've got into my preps, I think I'm about 6 shows now. I've trained harder and harder and harder leading into my shows. A multitude of reasons. I think the first one is because I've improved and I'm in a really good mindset. I struggle to train light because I've just spent 2 years trying to teach myself to train as hard as I possibly can. Yep. So a lot of the time I probably finish a set and be like, well, that was probably a bit hard. I know now I'm a bit worried because my adductors are still fried and I've got to get on stage in 2 days. So I guess I train, I definitely train. So let's say that a show's on a Saturday. Monday, I always train legs at the start of the week and I'll go pretty heavy. Or I guess you could say I could go pretty intense. I just be careful of my volume that I'm accumulating in that session. So I keep it pretty much to an hour. I keep the intensity up. I keep my sets relatively high, but I guess it's just my working intensity or working percentages of my 1RM are pretty low. So I'm just accumulating still a decent amount of volume, but I'll still push myself pretty hard. But I'm not going to do crazy stuff like, 4 sets of 50 rep leg press sets that I've done off season, because I'm just not going to be able to recover. Then the closer I get towards the end of the week, so for example, tomorrow will be my last sort of training day before my show, and that'll be following 2 high days of food, and I sort of taper it back down to moderate day. It's literally just 30-minute like push-pulls, sort of pretty light, and I will go pretty light on that day because it is the day before a show. So yeah, I guess you could sort of look at it as like a downward slopes linear progression. So the training intensity is relatively high at the start of the week and then it will taper off back. But I'm not sort of like, I'm nearly getting to I'll cut it right there. So I've found that I've enjoyed training hard leading to shows, but I do sort of put a bit of a handbrake on when necessary.
Sure. And do you, at any point, train on like the show day itself? Do you get up in the morning and get a light pump on or anything like that? Or do you just completely rest on the show day?
Light pump on with sort of my main meals. So literally I'd probably do just a little, I literally do like a 5-minute circuit. So my first meal I normally get up and have sort of some sugar, some quickly breaking down food with some sodiums. So it's first thing in the morning. And it's literally like I probably do a little circuit of a few. Normally I'm in a hotel room or somewhere. I've normally got some resistance bands, a few push-ups, a few sort of cable pulls, and I probably just do a little circuit of nothing over 10 minutes, and I'm literally just trying to sort of get warm. Sure. And I'll eat that with my food, and I drink a lot of water as well, so I'll be smashing the water around that. I just drink a lot of water. I always look better with more water, and so I just start to hydrate myself as well. And normally do that my main meal. So potentially up to 3 times before I'm on stage, and then I pump up pretty hard right before stage. I'll go pretty hard before I get on stage.
Yeah, cool, wicked. So yeah, that's generally how I approach things. I wouldn't do things much differently than that. So and I've covered some things on peak week before, so I'm sure people are nicely confirmed with the approach being fairly similar. At the end of the day, like I've talked about this before as well with peak weeks, it's just about like if you're in shape, then you don't really want to do too much differently, especially on the day itself, like keeping your routine. Like you said, you like a lot of water, keep the water coming in. A lot of people make the mistake of, and still make the mistake, even though it's been reiterated so many times that you shouldn't really be changing stuff. They still think that something being changed is going to make them look better, when in reality it's probably going to make them look probably slightly worse. Yeah. It might improve them 100%. By 1%, but the risk level is just so much greater than that percent you'll gain. Outside of that sort of training across like a normal week, are you running a push-pull leg split? Are you running up a lower split? What's your general approach to that right now? And what do you tend to like to do in an off season as well?
So I generally run a phase of macro, meso, and micro blocks, sort of over like the 12-week duration. Yep. And basically going, so talking from the outside in, I'll start with somewhere like a 12-10-8 rep undulation down to a 10-8-6, down to an 8-6-4. So obviously with that, so there's increased intensity of the working sets. I generally find the best way or the best sort of split I can handle personally is 3 upper, 2 lower. So that sort of is spread out over the week, 5 days training, 2 days rest, and 2 of those being lower body dominant, 3 of them being upper body dominant.
Yeah, nice.
Now, I undulate the days with my working percentages. So there's always a light, moderate, heavy day. So obviously there only being 2 of the leg days. One of them is like a light / moderate, and the other day is heavy. So I'll program different types of movements on that specific day. So taking leg day, for example, if I'm doing my moderate / light day versus my heavy day, on my moderate / light day, I'll do more of my accessory type movements. I always start the squat and deadlift, but I'll generally try and do a variation if I can. So I could switch into a high bar squat when I normally watch squat low bar. I could potentially do like a front squat. There's multiple ways, or I could potentially a safety bar squat, whatever I'm sort of feeling like I want to do. Sometimes if I'm just feeling like my squats go really good, I won't actually do an accessory movement on my squats. And then for my deadlifts, I'll also do an accessory deadlift. So that could be like a block pull, a deficit deadlift, some other ones. Yeah, like a rack pull or something like that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, or an RDL, a heavy like touch and go deadlift, something that's an accessory movement. And then on my heavier leg day, it's just a pure raw squat and deadlift. The reason being is because that's going to be a working percentage that's greater. So therefore, I'm going to be lifting more weight. I want to be able to replicate that movement better when the weight is heavier, because like I said, I intend on powerlifting one day. So for me, I want to have a really strong back squat for a smaller amount of repetitions. I don't really necessarily want a strong front squat for reps of 12. But that's a great way to accumulate volume. But for me, when those reps are smaller, I do want to ensure that I'm performing the movement necessary that I want to get at. And I always perform the deadlift in that order as well. Reason being is because I like training myself approaching a deadlift bar fatigued, because when I hopefully do step on a platform one day, I need to get used to coming out to a deadlift platform being fatigued, not fresh. And then I'll also throw in a lot of accessory movements after those sort of big spine compound movements. And that, again, depends on where my focus is. So this off season, it's been very hamstring orientated. So a lot of hip hinge stuff. And towards the end of my prep, I started doing a lot of glute stuff because I was a bit worried about my glutes coming in, and they were pretty slow. They're sort of kind of there now, sort of. And so I started doing just keep your hip hinge movements. And I'm very compound orientated. You'll never see me doing like a glute kickback or much sort of isolated stuff. I'm pretty much and then I guess I've had a few little niggles in through my off season, which everyone experiences, and I found the more isolated movements actually flared them up. So things like leg curls and stuff, I ended up just cutting out altogether and just started throwing more volume in, like Romanian deadlift variations, lunges and movements like that. I found that for me just worked better, and I liked the dynamic approach of it as well. So yeah.
Do you feel like the compound movements have had an effect on your physique and the way that it looks? Like, do you think that the fact that you've done a lot of compound movements and you're fairly strong, do you think that affects the amount of sort of muscle density and maturity that you have at a relatively young age?
I would like to say yes without sounding like I'm blowing smoke in my eyes, but I look at a lot of my fellow mentors and guys that I train with, and I look at Zach, for example, and Nathan, and I know Nathan, my mentor, he was, I think it was 90 kilos on stage or something, and he was like diced. It's that's a heavy weight to be on stage. And who's for someone who's really lean, that is a lot of weight. I know I'm talking kilos, and not sure what that is in pounds. So that's heavy. The density that you then see as a bodybuilder, when you're going through things like your symmetry rounds and stuff, everything just looks full and tight. It's just like you can't find a flaw in someone, I feel. And I do believe there is definitely correlation to how someone trains compared to the dude who goes in and just does his bicep curls and then his leg extensions and, whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I found the better you can put, if I can teach, I know from coaching experience, if I can teach a client to squat really, really, really well, chances of them performing any other movement on their legs is just about 99%. I could say, okay, now I want you to go do a half squat, and I want to tell them anything, and they're already bracing, breaking at their hips, getting their knee, their knee alignment well. Everything just seems to carry over. So I just think there's such a good carryover to them and performing all your accessory movements better. So you're going to be training better. But yeah, I definitely agree with big compounds. I think they're key. They're key.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that we can always say cause meets correlation, but it, like, when you look at the physiques that are presented at the level that we're looking at, and then you look at how they train, there tends to be a correlation. Like, some of the best natural bodybuilders in 100%. The world are extremely strong. They're either extremely strong or extremely gifted. Usually if you get an extremely strong guy and an extremely gifted guy, then you get a fucking freak. So that's what got to appreciate that. Moving a bit away from training and moving more so to sort of nutrition, I know that I've commented on a few of your approaches already in terms of how you set up sort of moderate, high and low days and things like that in terms of your week, and I find that quite interesting. I think some of the listeners would as well. So what's your approach to nutrition in a contest prep phase? Did it always look like moderate, high and low days from the start, or did you slowly introduce that after running a phase of linear calories? Like, how has things looked over the course of your prep?
Metabolically, I'm a very interesting person, to say the least. So I had a good reverse diet in my last off season and managed to work my food up. I think my macros were somewhere around 225 protein, 710 carb, and 110 fat. So it was like it was an eating contest. I wouldn't know it was harder than prep itself. Like it was nearly 5,000 calories. Now I'm happy to express my macros. My low days, I'm at 200 carb, 30 fat, and 215 protein. So that's like the gap there, to put it in perspective. Now, obviously, I'm just talking the upper and lower quartiles. So like you mentioned, I'm not on, it's not linear. So there is undulations in between. So in my off season, obviously when my food was that high, there was no necessity, or I didn't see the necessity to have a refeed. But I did drop my food on my low days by around 60 carbohydrate, which worked out to be a few hundred calories. I just didn't see the need to be consuming that additional calories. I was probably going to still be in a surplus, and I was not training for 2 to 3 hours, so I didn't really need to have that extra form of glucose, I felt. Then basically we started dieting. Because we were on so much food, we were able to cull some food pretty hard. I think my first food drop was sub 400 calories. And then it was just like clockwork for the first half of my prep. It was like I literally go in, my skin folds are moved, my weight was down, on target, bang. Like, didn't really need to do anything. I think for the first 10 to 12 weeks of my prep, we pulled my food 4 times or something. Nice. It was just a walk in the park. Then things started. Then I converted from basically, a Mustang to a Prius, and I got really economical, and my body's like, all right, we're losing weight. We gotta start holding back here. And I found things, started to stall. So my weight and skin folds were stalling a little bit, so we had to be a bit more aggressive with our food drops. Then when that sort of started, that's when we started implementing high days. So high day meaning is that we sort of found a ballpark, understanding that if my body can handle 700 grams of carbohydrate, we'd find somewhere close to there. But there's no metabolic set point. So, I'm probably not more now sitting down at the bottom of where my metabolism's adapting. It's trying to be pretty economical. It's not sort of up the top here. So I think I was refeeding it somewhere around 600 carb to begin with a little bit more fat on that day. And we always run 2 to 3 day refeeds. It was at that point, it was 2 day refeeds. And then basically back down training day macros. And then there was also a little bit of calorie buffer, I like to call it, on my rest days, where a little bit less. That was around the 50 gram mark. So I guess that the gaps between the high, moderate, low was sort of squeezing together now.
Sure. Coming
towards the tail end of my prep, things pretty much progressed in that manner. So I had a high, moderate, low day. However, they were just less. So my average weekly caloric intake was less. And that we just did that proportionally to what we thought was necessary in that week. So if I didn't move as much weight in skin folds, there was a bigger calorie drop on average. If it was less, we were able to hold back a bit, but we pretty much had to pull food every week to get me sort of lean. And even for my first show, I've come a lot. I've still lost a fair bit of weight, and my skin folds have still moved a fair bit since that first show. So that's pretty much a summary. I guess it's just very interesting to note the dynamic that can happen with someone metabolically. So I compare myself to one of my mates who competed along with me, and he doesn't get his food anywhere near as high as me in his off season. And for the first half of prep, he's like, "Oh, don't whinge, don't complain. You're on so much food." And then all of a sudden, I hopscotch and I was eating less than him. and I had to start implementing HIIT training to get my body to move, and he didn't have to diet as low. So some people's upper and lower quartile of I guess the rock bottom and the sky high with that calorie intake is smaller, and some people's is larger. And for me, I find it's larger. And to get lean, I just have to really pull my food. Yeah. So, and then the off season, I can just get it really high again. It's not to say I'm a better or worse bodybuilder. It's just how I'm put together.
You're just more adaptive to the response.
Yeah. I'm adaptive, and it's funny, the starter prepper wasn't adaptive, but now my body's just like, well, okay. I think potentially it might have been because I got my food so high, so it just took a while for my body to just be like, it's all right, we still don't need that food. You're still eating 600 carbs a day, no stress. Yeah. And then it started to come down, and my training, and I was still feeling great by then, so my progressive overload of my training was still pretty significant. So there was still a big energy gap in there. And then I found that sort of things sort of start to slow up and start to get a little bit harder, and now really pushing on.
Sure. Awesome. So yeah, I think that's a pretty cool comparison to sort of for competitors to realize. I think a lot of people get worried when their food gets low, and the reality is like a lot of the time it's what you've got to do. I've said this, multiple times in terms of the fact that you don't worry about where your macros are at. Worry if you're getting the job done or not. And if you need to lose weight, then you need to do the necessary to get the weight off. And whether that's going down to, some people have to go sub 1,500 calories as a male competitor, and it's tough. Yeah. But sometimes you have to do that to get the fat off, and that's just the case of natural bodybuilding. And then sometimes you see those competitors that get sometimes sub 1,500, sometimes they work up their calories super duper high in off season, and that's it. I think that it's difficult for you guys that do have more of an adaptive metabolism, because when you're in your off season, it's super difficult to actually get it up and keep it up and eat enough to grow. Fitting 710 grams of carbs in a day and just trying to fit that around all your work, your studying and all of that can probably be a bit of a nightmare.
So hard.
Yeah. So
man, that was.
And trying to keep gut health and things like that in the spot,
it was a terrible time. I don't think I'll actually. I ended up pulling my food a little bit early into my prep because it was starting to affect my training so significantly. Like I was constantly. I couldn't squat without feeling like I was just you're going to be like it was not a fun. I'm pretty sure my breakfast smoothie that I used to have in my off season was like way higher than my daily food intake, like way higher.
Oh,
so yeah, it's pretty cool. But honestly, it's easier. It's easier now dieting because it's just you kind of just looking at the clock when I can eat again. Whereas then I didn't eat every 2 hours, and that's really the only time I'm really worried about food timing. I was like, I'm in trouble. Yeah. I'm gonna have 5 meals put together.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. So, what's the plans for the rest of the season in terms of competitive shows? I know that you said you got the Olympia coming up. Is that in Vegas? The Amateur Olympia?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's something I never would have thought at the start of my prep would have taken me this far. So I've decided to really just take the opportunity on board. So I qualified at the INBA Universe, which was held here relatively local to me, about an hour's drive. So I qualified there to go over to the Natural Olympia in Las Vegas at the Rio Hotel, and that's in 3 weeks' time. So I have the Australian titles here, which is in 2 days. I'll see how I shape up there. And then I have one more show in between, and then I'll fly out to Vegas to compete for them as a junior. So I'm so excited for that. Like it's going to be, I'm just so keen. I never would have ever considered to be able to go to that standard and hold myself there. So it's something I wouldn't have thought I would have done till I was not a junior anymore, completely an open. So I guess for me, it's more of an opportunity than anything else. And I think it'd be a really good way to finish this season for me because I know I won't compete again for a little bit of a while. Yeah. That'll be my final show before I look to wrap it up. And I've sort of booked a bit of a holiday and stuff because mentally I'm a big believer of sort of setting time frame and rewards and stuff. And when it gets to the end of prep, it's a really good incentive for you when things do get hard to sort of just keep ticking on and staying progressive because I see a lot of people, I guess, just drop the ball in that between that until that last show, and they kind of get on stage looking their worst on their last show, and it's unfortunate because I mean, that's where you should be your best. And I think there's lots of factors you can include. And I guess as a coach, it's one thing I sort of try and, if I can, predict for a client as to when's probably going to be a good time to find that, and acknowledge that time frames are really important, and pleasure and reward is a very good way of keeping someone adherent, and I guess ensuring that they're improved so they don't get up there on their last time. I feel as though if I did any more shows after Olympia, mentally I've told myself that's still where I'm finishing, and I know that I wouldn't put in 100% from there on, and that's not what I'm about. I'm about reading chapters at once and flipping the page, not trying to do two things at once. So yeah.
How long was your prep in total since the start?
Oh man, it's a long time. So I did 28 weeks to my first show.
Sounds like mine.
And so I think I'm about 35 weeks. I'd be the mid 30 weeks in, and then I've got another 4 till, so it'd be about 40 weeks. In total.
I did like 40.
It's a long time.
Yeah. You get used
to it. Yeah, it's nearly a whole year.
You get so used to it.
Yeah, exactly. You get used to it, but I guess it's more towards, and for me, I was initially surrounded by my prep by a lot of people preparing with me as well, and obviously people flying finish. I'm lucky that I don't have any commitments. I'm single and no family, and I guess nothing tying some people back where they obviously have to take that into consideration and may not be able to compete for as long. But for me, I don't. So I guess I sort of feel like a bit of a lone wolf, which in a way is really cool because it's not a team sport really, and it's towards the end when things get really nitty gritty that you really discover a lot about yourself, and I've sort of found that this week, and it's like the harder it gets, the more I kind of enjoy it. I'm like, all right, this is where I'm really discovering a lot about myself as a human being, and what my comfort zone is here. And now I'm sort of moving into this line, and you learn a lot about yourself. And that's why, honestly, I do the sport. It's because of the character it builds you. And I know that the dynamic of it just transfers into every other area of life. And I know that leading to my off season, I can undoubtedly say I'm going to try and better this off season because of who I built myself mentally. Even though I'm 13 kilos, I know I'm a bigger person up here. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly. I think the further and the deeper you get into it, the more you learn stuff about yourself that you can't ever learn in any other phase. It's just it's an odd environment in which you learn like what you're capable of, both mentally and physically. So it does also massively transition into your off season. I can hold that up to you as well, because my training has transformed since I went through that prep. I approach like sets thinking if I can do that prep and that length and stay that lean for that long, then I can pull this or I can squat this. Like it just gives you that extra level of confidence in your training, which is obviously fantastic. Cool, man. So that's pretty much what I wanted to ask you overall in terms of where you're at with your coaching. I know that you do online work. Are you coaching competitors as mostly online, or do you coach sort of anyone online? Like, how do you sort of tend to schedule that at the moment?
I take anyone online. I have a multitude of clients. So I enjoy it because, like I say, because I'm at the end of an exercise physiology degree, I actually have a big passion for, I guess, working with people who are injured and limited and not looking to compete at all. So I guess that's what a lot of I do a fair bit of face-to-face, a fair bit more in my off-season. I really enjoy face-to-face, hands-on stuff. And then I also do a fair bit of comp prep. I've had a few female competitors run through this year, and they've all done relatively well in a multitude of federations, and also do male bodybuilders as well. I've got a few guys that are not competing now, but the reason being is because they've learned the importance of an off-season, so pushing them into an upcoming season. But yeah, I really do enjoy the dynamic of coaching people. I like to work with people who are up to sort of, baseline and that injured or I guess more challenged, so to speak, area, and then above and beyond, people who are fit and ready to go and keen to step on stage. So I do, about a fair bit of online work and then a fair bit of face-to-face. And the more I've got into my prep, the more online I've found I've been doing, just because I've started to reach out, or a few people started to reach out from me who aren't exactly super local to us. So at Holdroon,
Perfect. Awesome. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in your services or want to inquire a little bit more as to what you offer? Like, can they reach you on Instagram? Have you got an email? Have you got a site? What's the best way to get to you?
Yeah, so they can either contact me through my email is best, and that's just Liam, Liam, at holdyourown.com.au. So that's the gym that I work for under, like I said, head coach Nathan Wallace. You can also search holdyourown.com.au, and that comes up with our website and basically our coaching facility there, or my Instagram account, which is just Liam Bygott, Liam_Bygott, I think, BYGOTT. So.
Awesome, wicked stuff. So I'm sure you'll get a few new people on board and following the rest of your prep. So that'll be great for them to follow. And yeah, other than that, dude, like, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a nice brief chat and a synopsis as to where you're at, and interesting for me to learn, especially about your studies as well, like how you combine all of that with your prep is very, very cool.
I encourage everyone. I encourage every single person to study. I don't care how busy you are, what you're doing, what your goals are. I think everyone should study. It's one thing that I've learned. I've always been studying. I came straight out of school, straight into a degree. Nice. Is that your brain is like a muscle. Like stress it, train it, and it gets better and it gets bigger, and it'll build you. And especially people in this industry that I've worked for, the people who are studying are so much better coaches. You just become, it's like anything else. It's like a muscle. If you don't train it, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to deteriorate. Your brain will do the same. So I encourage people to build and learn. It doesn't have to be a degree of some sort. It can be something big or large, whatever it is. Really highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really, really cool, dude. I think, the way in which you can learn, like nowadays, obviously, some people at ground level can learn from very, very basic stuff, and we constantly adapt with that. But obviously at the higher end, studying and doing degrees, etc., like that is a great way to challenge yourself. And
it's so flexible.
Yes, yeah. It is nowadays. It's crazy. You can do it so remotely that you can crack on with a degree, still coach and do things like that. So it's fantastic for sure. So yeah, dude, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
Best of luck with the upcoming days leading into your show, and then obviously leading into the Olympia. I'm sure if I'm ever in Australia, I will definitely try and visit Hold Your Own.
Well, I'll be in LA actually when you're at the INBF show, so I will be in touch, and we might have to organise a session. Yeah, I am. So, because that's where my holiday will fall. So, I will be in touch with you on dates and stuff. So, I might even come watch the I'd like to come watch the INBF, because I considered actually competing for them, but it was just going to be a little bit difficult with the pre-qualifications coming. Being pre-qualified so close to the show. Sure. So, I will be in LA. So, we'll have to touch further on that.
Epic. Yeah, that'll be very, very good. I'm sure people will be game for a collab, and hopefully by that point you'll have gained a little bit and you'll be feeling much better in the gym.
Oh, yeah. Looking at the buffet, that's where I'm staying. I might be a kilo or two heavier on the stage. These cheeks might be a little bit fluffier, but we'll see how I go. I intend on having another reverse diet, as it's a good opportunity to improve again. So yeah,
of course. Cool, man. Well, thank you very much again. Have a good evening, good rest of your night, and I'm sure that we'll stay in touch and we'll chat soon, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks for getting up so early, and I really, really, really appreciate you having me on. It means a lot for me. So I hope to potentially hook up some more stuff in the future if you're ever in me.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. No, I appreciate it. Cool. Thanks for watching, guys. As usual, share this on your story. Share it with your friends. I'm sure that some of Liam's friends and family and people will watch this. And also, obviously, my followers, go and follow Liam. He's a great guy to follow. It'll be awesome to follow in his off-season as well, documenting his lifts and his progress. So yeah, thanks, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. See you in a bit. Bye.